Am I the a-hole for telling my MIL to fuck herself? I, 29F, have been with my husband, 31M, for 14 years. We were 15 and 16 when we started dating, high school sweethearts in every sense of the word. Because my own mother passed away when I was 5 and my father never remarried, my husband's family became my entire world. I looked at his mother, my MIL, as the woman who would finally fill that hollow space in my chest. For a long time, I let her. I played the part of the grateful, motherless girl, and she played the part of the savior. But as the years went on, I realized her motherly love was actually a leash. The first time I felt that leash tighten was a decade ago when I got into medical school in another country. It was a dream I'd worked for since I was a child. My husband, who was my boyfriend then, didn't even hesitate. He said, "I'm going with you. We'll make it work." We were young, excited, and ready to start our lives. But when we told his mother, the joy was sucked out of the room instantly. She didn't hug me. She didn't say she was proud. She looked at me with cold, watery eyes and said, "I hope you're happy. You're taking my baby away from me. I don't know how I'll survive the depression this is going to cause me." We were gone for 6 years. During that time, I worked 80-hour weeks, studied until my eyes bled, and navigated a foreign healthcare system. And every single week, I had to deal with her Skype sessions. She would cry. She would talk about how empty the house was. She would tell me about neighbors whose children stayed local and bought houses down the street. Must be nice for those mothers, she'd sigh. When I would finally break down and tell her she was being unfair, she'd let out that sharp, airy laugh that I've grown to loathe. "Oh, honey, you're so sensitive." "I'm joking. You really can't take a joke, can you? That's going to be a problem for you in the medical field." She essentially spent 6 years punishing me for having an ambition that required her son to leave her sight. I spent those 6 years feeling like I owed her a debt I could never repay. Then came our wedding. I spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours trying to make it perfect. Since I didn't have a mom, I invited her into every part of the process. Big mistake. She told me my dress made me look puffy. She told me the flowers looked like funeral arrangements, and she insisted on wearing a dress that was so close to white it was practically bridal. On the actual wedding day, right as we were standing at the altar, she pulled her biggest stunt yet. As we began our vows, she let out a loud moan and pretended to have a dizzy spell. My husband actually let go of my hands to grab her a chair. The focus of the most important 30 seconds of my life was shifted entirely to her fragile heart. I spent the rest of the reception apologizing to her for the stress of the day. Fast forward to now. We have 2 sons, a 3-year-old and a 1-month-old. With my first, I bounced back physically almost instantly. I was back in my pre-pregnancy jeans in weeks, so she couldn't find a way to attack my body. Instead, she attacked my parenting. "Are you really going back to work?" she'd ask. "A mother's place is with her baby. My son is going to be so lonely while you're at the hospital. I am a doctor. I save lives." But in her eyes, I was just a woman neglecting her rightful duties. But this second pregnancy was different. It was high risk. I had preeclampsia. I was on bed rest. I was terrified. I am currently carrying 30 pounds of baby weight that won't budge. My hormones have caused a massive breakout on my face, and I am exhausted beyond comprehension. The day my son was born, we video called her from the hospital. I was still in the gown, shivering, holding my newborn. The first words out of her mouth weren't "congratulations" or "how are you?" She leaned into the camera and said, "Ugh, look at those pimples on your face, honey. You look so tired. When I was your age and had my babies, I made sure I looked my best for my husband. You've really let yourself go." I bawled my eyes out the second we hung up. My husband's response? "She's just blunt, honey. She doesn't realize how it sounds. Don't be so sensitive." That brings us to today. They came over to meet the baby in person for the first time. I was a nervous wreck. I cleaned the house, I put on a nice sweater, I tried to look my best. Everything was civil for about an hour. Then she started pushing to babysit. I told her politely that we were going to wait a bit longer, just like we did with our first. "I'm breastfeeding, and I want to establish a routine." Her face shifted. That sweet grandma mask dropped, and she looked at me with pure disgust. She scanned my body from my head to my toes and said, "Well, you really should just hand him over to me and go to the gym, honey. It's been a month, and you still look like a whale. It's embarrassing for my son to have to come home to this every day." The room went dead silent. I felt a heat rise in my chest that I have never felt before. 14 years of jokes. 14 years of being blamed for her depression. 14 years of being the bigger person just snapped. I looked at my husband. He was standing 3 feet away. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at her. He looked at the floor. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Did you really just come into my home to insult me? A month after I gave birth? Fuck you. Get out of my house." The explosion was nuclear. She didn't apologize. She started screaming that I was a snake and a diva. She wailed that she had been the mother I never had. That specific line felt like a physical blow to the stomach. She shouted that I was cruel and ungrateful. My husband finally moved, but only to tell his parents they should leave because things were getting heated. He didn't defend me. He apologized to them as he walked them to the car. Within 30 minutes, my sister-in-law, my best friend, called me. She wasn't checking on me. She was livid. She told me I crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. She said her mother was at home with a hypertensive crisis. I'm a doctor, I know she's just worked herself into a tizzy, and that I am a raging bitch for talking to an elder like that. She told me that after everything her mother has done for me, I owe her a public apology. Then my husband came back into the room. He didn't hug me. He didn't ask if I was okay. He looked at me with pure, cold disappointment and said, "You really crossed a line. You can't talk to my mother like that. You should have been the bigger person. She's just blunt. You need to apologize or this family is done." I am sitting here on this bathroom floor wondering if I'm the crazy one. I have worked my entire life to be a person of value. I have a medical degree. I have 2 beautiful children. I have been a loyal partner for 14 years. And yet, in this family, I am only as valuable as my ability to be a silent punching bag for a narcissistic woman. Everyone is bombarding me. My husband is sleeping on the couch. My best friend is gone. But for the first time in 15 years, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like a motherless girl who needs a savior. I feel like a woman who finally stood up for herself. If being the bigger person means letting people call me names in my own kitchen while my husband watches, then I'm done being big. I'm going to be small. I'm going to be difficult. I'm going to be exactly what she called me if it means she never gets to step foot in this house again. So, am I the a-hole? Was I unhinged for using a curse word? Or did I finally just find where the line was? Because from where I'm sitting, the family piece was just a cage, and I finally broke the lock. Edit. It's now 6 a.m. I didn't sleep. My husband stayed on the couch, and every time I went to the kitchen to fix a bottle, he just stared at me with this hollow, wounded look. "Are you ready to fix this yet?" he asked at 4 a.m. "I'm waiting for your mother to apologize for calling me a whale," I said. "She won't," he replied. "You know she won't. She's convinced she was just trying to help, and you attacked her. If you don't call her, she's going to tell everyone you're keeping the kids from her." "I'm not keeping the kids from her," I said. "I'm keeping her away from me. There is a difference. If she wants to see the baby, she can do it when I'm not in the house. But she is never speaking to me like that again." He just sighed and turned over. He thinks I'm being stubborn. He thinks this is a game of chicken. But it's not a game. It's my life. My sister-in-law sent one final text before she blocked me. "I hope your pride is worth losing your family. Don't come to the christening next week if you can't be civil." I wasn't even the one who invited her to the christening. It's my son's christening. They're already trying to exile me from my own life events. I'm a doctor. I'm used to making hard decisions. I'm used to seeing things for what they really are. And what I see here is a family that has spent 15 years enabling a bully, and they're terrified because the victim finally fought back. Update. Around 6 in the evening, his phone rang. It was his mother. He stepped into another room to answer, and the call didn't last long. When he came back, he said they wanted to come over to talk things out. I agreed because I thought it would just be his parents and that we could clear the air like adults. That's not what happened. They didn't come alone. They showed up with all 4 of his siblings. It wasn't a conversation. It felt like an organized intervention the second they walked in. The energy in the room shifted immediately. No one was there to listen. They were there with a purpose. His mom started crying almost as soon as she sat down. She framed everything as a misunderstanding and said she was joking earlier, that I took it the wrong way. The tone was very controlled, but it didn't feel genuine. My father-in-law stayed silent the entire time. He didn't defend her, but he didn't question anything either. He just sat there and let it happen. What I didn't expect was his sister's reaction. She used to be very close to me, but that wasn't the person sitting in front of me that evening. She went straight into criticizing me. According to her, I had changed, become aggressive, and was now disrespectful to the family. It wasn't framed as a disagreement. It was framed as something being wrong with me. The conversation slowly shifted from the argument to me as a person. They started talking about how I seemed overwhelmed, emotional, and unstable. It didn't come all at once. It built up piece by piece, like they were laying out a case. The focus moved away from what was said to me and onto how I reacted. Then it crossed a line I didn't expect. His sister suggested that I should take a break and let them help with the kids. not in a casual way. She started talking about keeping my sons for a while, so I could recover. She even suggested that I could pump milk and give it to them so they could take care of the newborn. It didn't sound like support. It sounded like they were trying to take control. I looked at my husband, expecting him to shut that down immediately. He didn't. He didn't agree with them directly, but he didn't stop it either. He said they were worried and that I needed to admit I wasn't okay. That was the moment everything shifted for me. Up until then, I thought this was a conflict between me and his mother. Hearing him say that made it clear that it was bigger than that. I told them clearly that I wasn't handing my children over to anyone and that the suggestion itself was inappropriate. It wasn't a discussion. It was a boundary. Instead of stepping back, his mother escalated. She said that if it came to it, a judge would side with her. She claimed that I worked too much, that I was unstable, and that she could pursue legal action for grandparents' rights. It wasn't said casually. It was said like a threat. That changed the atmosphere completely. Up until that point, it was tense and uncomfortable. After that, it felt serious in a way that made it hard to stay calm. I asked her to explain what she meant, and she repeated that she could take legal steps if she believed the children were better off with her. There was no attempt to soften it or walk it back. My husband didn't shut it down. He didn't support it directly either, but he stayed quiet, which felt the same in that moment. It made it clear that he wasn't going to step in and defend me the way I expected. At that point, the conversation stopped being productive. It wasn't about resolving anything anymore. It was about control and pressure. I told them to leave. There wasn't any argument from my side beyond that. I didn't engage with the accusations or the threats further. They left, but not quietly. The tension followed them out the door. After they were gone, the house felt different. It wasn't just the usual silence after an argument. It felt like something had been broken. My husband and I finally talked, but it wasn't a resolution. He kept repeating that they were worried and that I needed to see it from their perspective. He didn't acknowledge how far things had gone or how inappropriate the suggestions were. That part has been the hardest to process. It's not just about his mother anymore. It's about the fact that he didn't step in when it mattered. Since then, the messages haven't stopped. Calls, texts, family members reaching out with different versions of the same concern. Some are softer, some are more direct, but the message is consistent. They believe I overreacted, and they believe I need help. No one is addressing what was actually said to me or the threat that was made. As for the legal side, I started looking into it because I didn't want to ignore something that serious. From what I understand so far, it's not as simple as she made it sound. It's not something that happens just because a grandparent wants it. There would have to be serious reasons, and it's not something that can just be decided based on one argument. That gave me some relief, but it didn't erase the fact that she said it in the first place. Right now, I'm focusing on my children and keeping things stable for them. The contact with his family is limited. There hasn't been any visit since that day, and I'm not comfortable changing that anytime soon. My husband and I are still not on the same page. That hasn't been resolved. It's an ongoing issue, and it's clear that it won't fix itself without a serious conversation that hasn't happened yet. I didn't expect things to go this far over one comment, but looking back, it wasn't just about that moment. It was a buildup of years of behavior that finally crossed a line I couldn't ignore. That's where things stand now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.